Mr. Paul here with the first of many Scratch tutorials. I'm going to go fairly quickly, so feel free to use the pause, rewind, and play button anytime you'd like. And hopefully, by the end of these tutorials, you guys will be confident, excited to go out and create your own very exciting projects. Today, we're going to start off just by getting to know the layout of Scratch and some of the terminology. So let's first start with this area over here. This white box is what's known as the stage. And you can think of the stage as in a performance, like an art and drama performance. When the audience comes to your play, they typically don't see what's behind the stage or on the side of the stage. They just see what's happening on the stage. The same thing goes for your projects. When someone uses your project, they won't see the code or the sprites down here or anything else. They'll just see what's happening on the stage. Now your stage has three views. This is the standard view. If you go to edit, there's a small stage layout so that you have more room to code. And there's the full screen layout. And this is what the users will see when they're playing your project. So I can press the full screen button here to go back. Edit to go back to uncheck the small stage layout. Now I'm back to standard size. So that's the stage. Pretty cool. Down here we have our first sprite. Now a sprite, I like to think of it in this way. If you were to draw an image on a piece of paper, it's just a bunch of lines and paint. But if it were to become a sprite, imagine that that image stood up off of the paper and entered the world. And it came into this world and it can move, it can dance, it can change colors, it can grow, it can do all sorts of things. That is what a sprite is. It's no longer just some paint and lines, it's actually an object. And you can modify this object using your code, your scripts. Over here you have three tabs when you have selected your sprite. You have your scripts, your costumes, which just like in a performance can change the way your sprite looks. You put on a different costume, it can look totally different. And the sounds tab. This is where you can choose sounds from the Scratch library. You can record your own sounds, or you can upload a sound from another file like GarageBand. Let's go back to costumes for a minute. You can import costumes from the Scratch library, paint your own costume, upload a costume from a file that maybe you created in Photoshop or some other graphic software, or you can take a picture and use that as a costume. So if your device has an internal camera, a built-in camera, you can use this icon to use that camera to create your own costumes from a picture. Alright, so scripts, costumes, and sounds. And again, these three tabs are for sprites. Alright, so now let's talk about this area over here. This is what's known as the workspace. And the workspace is where you are going to build your code by dragging over various scripts and running them in your program. Once you start adding scripts, it can get pretty complicated. It can actually get very disorganized, and what you'll need to do is clean things up. So what you do to clean up your scripts is you right click on the empty space in your workspace and clean up. Alright, you can also zoom in using the magnifying glass in the corner and zoom out. So it all depends on what you like to see. To get rid of your scripts, you just drag them over back into blocks over here, or you can right click on the block and delete it. Notice you can also duplicate your code or add a comment to it so that you know what that specific code is for. I can delete it. Maybe I created a complicated bit of code and I wanted to duplicate it. Duplicate. There we go. Alright, so just get rid of these. And that is the workspace. Down here we have our stage icon. As you saw before, we have scripts, costumes, and sounds. But when you click the stage icon, something changes. You still have scripts, you still have sounds, but now you have something called backdrops. And if you think of the stage again in the sense that it's a performance or a play, the backdrop is what changes the way the stage looks. For example, if you're doing a play about the Jungle Book, well then you may have a backdrop about the jungle. So just like the Sprite, you can import a backdrop from the library. So let's just select one here, click OK. Ta-da! Now we have a baseball field backdrop. You can paint your own backdrop using the simple paint system here. You can paint a fun little backdrop for yourself. Okay. As you can see, we have the basic shapes in our paint program. You have the fill tool, but you also have the gradient fill tool. We'll talk more about painting later. You can upload a backdrop from a file, or you can choose a backdrop from a photo that you take with your built-in camera. You also have your menu up here for saving and editing. There's tips and about. One last thing I guess I'll say about sprites is that here you have these same 4 icons for your sprites. So if you'd like to bring in a new sprite from your library, paint a new sprite, there you go, or upload one from a file or take a picture of a sprite, you can do that too. And let me just show you the library real quick. So as I mentioned before, sprites are objects, not necessarily animals. You can see there's a whole variety of objects that can be used as sprites. So that ends our quick tutorial on the layout of Scratch, and the next tutorial we will get into sprites. Alright, hope to see you then. Bye-bye.